I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Everything Everywhere All at Once is over. So even though you've broken my heart yet again, I wanted to say, in another life, I would have really liked just doing laundry and taxes with you.
Mrs. Wang. Mrs. Wang.
Mrs. Wang, are you with us?
I am paying attention.
Now, you may only see a pile of receipts, but I see a story. I can see where this story is going. It does not look good.
What's happening?
I'm not your husband. I'm another version of him from another universe. I'm here because we need your help.
Very busy today. No time to help you.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. Andy, why is it that when I said this, this is one of my favorite, certainly one of my favorite movies of that year. It's one of my favorite movies, period. I love this movie so much. And I said to my family, hey, family, do you want to come watch Everything Everywhere All at Once with me? And not only did none of them say yes, one of them says, I hate that movie.
Oh, no.
What do I do? What do I do with that?
You just can't talk to them anymore.
I don't.
It's excommunication.
That's kind of where we are. Excommunication. Yeah. Do they do that from families? I thought that was a church. Well, whatever.
You have to treat this like a church, Pete. The Church of Cinema.
The Church of Cinema. Put that on a shirt.
That's right. I do think it's interesting because I love this film. I think this is just a fantastic, incredible piece of cinema that the Daniels have really crafted something special and unique in the way that it unfolds, the layers that it has, covering so many different things in kind of this sci-fi multiverse, but you also have, immigration. There's kind of this immigration story and the relationship between Chinese parents, particularly in this case, a father having a daughter. You've got this whole thing of like tapping into martial arts and fantasy and science fiction and comedy and the surrealness of everything and the nature of a person like trying to figure out who they are, trying to achieve more, but never quite being able to figure it out. You've got relationship with children, particularly when one of them comes out, and how do you work through that, especially in a relationship with your own father. You've got regular parent-child relationship issues trying to deal with. You've got marital issues. Like there are so many things that this film is talking about. And the journey across, all of these different universes as we walk through the story, it's an incredible, incredible ride and just an exploration of all of these things with a cast that is nailing it out of the park. But I think what throws people, and I think this speaks to maybe that person in your family, and let's say, a number of people that I know, they watch this film and it's busy. It is a very busy experience, and it's a lot for some people. And it's knowing that the Daniels came from doing a lot of really creative, energetic music videos that also pushed bounds as far as like dildos and things like that. I think for some people, this is it's a lot to take. And I can understand that. I've told people, I think it's just one of the best films ever, but it's a film that's not for everybody.
Yeah. It seems like it should be for everybody because everything's in it.
Everywhere.
Right? A little bit. Like it is. Like you said, it's a martial arts film. It's a family film. It's a marriage film. It's a parent-child film. It's The Matrix. It's Police Story. It's a Wonderful Life and Groundhog Day. Like it's all of those movies. And I think that's the most interesting thing about this, that this movie, rather than being everything everywhere all at once for everyone, it's everything for a smaller group. Obviously a big enough group to gross what it did and to be as popular as it was. But I can totally see how sometimes the sum of all parts do not make it better. This is a great example of that in terms of of people who are critical of the movie, because there's so much that they just don't feel like they can keep up.
or they don't want to keep up. Like, it's just like, and I think, and I can certainly see this perspective with this film. Like, for some people, because it's so busy, when it does have those very strong emotional scenes between characters, whether it's the husband and wife, or the mom and the daughter, or the mom and the dad, whatever the relationships, those quieter moments of having a conversation and sorting through your own issues, in some production styles, everything kind of builds in a way that kind of becomes this emotional peak. And it's here, but those peaks kind of come and go real quick because suddenly you're on to something else. And I think for some people, they feel like I didn't have a chance to build up my emotions to really feel those things, because then I was on to some other crazy thing. I don't know. Maybe that's just a shift in production style. And I can certainly understand when that's a perspective people have, but I don't know. I guess for me, it just didn't affect me. Like, I don't find that as an issue.
Well, I don't find that as an issue because I find I build my emotional connection with our principal characters from the jump, right? From watching Michelle Yeoh sitting in front of that table of just a disastrous mess of tax receipts, from Ke Kwan coming in and trying to get through. Can we just make dinner, right? Can we just have a conversation, knowing that he's holding on to the divorce papers? Like, that gives me such an entree to the emotional world of this movie that I'm able to sort of let go and just watch what happens from the first time things start to go crazy, and we get the other Waymond from another universe, right? It's just fantastic and so simple, right? This movie has a lot going on in terms of just effects and compositing and retakes and reshoots. But how simple is it that to demonstrate we're jumping universes in the first act of this movie is just he puts his head down and puts it back up again? That is such a simple and effective trick to use off the shelf, like old earpieces and a head move to convey something that Marvel has spent, $1 billion and 23 movies to try to make, or what now, $5 billion. I don't know what they've made this spent so far.
Well, and it's a very different kind of multiverse too, because it's not like Alpha Waymond physically is coming to this other universe. It's all through the mind, through these connections that they have. So he's kind of like mentally taking over this Waymond and hopping into his body in and out as needed over the course of the story. And I think that's the interesting shift that we have with Multiverse here, is it's not like Doctor Strange opening up portals and just, everybody's all of a sudden in a new place and now there's two Doctor Stranges in one universe and all of that. And like, we're not seeing that, but it's this story of other versions of yourself. And I think that's what really is clever about this, is taking this story about like this science fiction parallel universe idea that we have here. But the idea is like where there are a lot of other versions of you, and some may be doing things better, some may be doing things worse, but they're all kind of you. It all kind of, depends on how far you get from that particular universe. But I think that's the interesting thing, because, you can kind of see it in your mind's eye of your own life. It's like, gosh, what if I had made that choice back in college and I had picked that as my major instead of this? Like, would I have been happier? And like, those are the sorts of things that I think is fascinating here, because we get those clues when she first goes to sit down at her tax audit with Deirdre Beaudeirdre as fantastic Jamie Lee Curtis, that she wants to be a singer. She has that ambition. She buys that karaoke machine, which she's trying to write off. She wants to be a cook, like all of these different things. And then we get to see her actually realizing those in those other parallel universes. And I think that's such a fascinating way to show that in this particular story.
Well, and you can't drop, when you're making that list, you can't drop that she struggles with the relationship with her daughter because her daughter has just come out as gay. And in one of those universes, she's a lesbian with Deirdre and hot dog fingers. Like, yes. That could not be more perfect. The thing that I walked away with, and it's just more sort of cemented on this view, is that the the entire sort of ideology of the movie is a reminder to me personally that I can go easier on myself. That's what I walked away from the movie with the first time was, you know what? If everything everywhere all at once, if in the mentality of this movie, sure, there's a Pete out there who's working on a deep sea oil rig, and there's a Pete out there who's, a commercial airline pilot, and, anything I've ever thought, hey, maybe I should go do that thing. There's a Pete already out there doing it. So maybe I can go a little easier on myself and celebrate what I have right now. And I think that comes in this story that is set up by following as our protagonist in Michelle Yeoh, the worst version of her of all the universes, right? The very worst. She's made all the wrong choices, which is diabolical and funny and sad all at once to watch her witness all of the other hers, and they're all a little bit better. To let her get some sort of perspective on exactly that ideology, I think for me is maybe what is the worst for you, it doesn't have to be the worst. It doesn't have to be the worst because it's what you make it. And by the end, when she's still dealing with taxes at the end of the movie, it's still taxes, but somehow it's better.
Right. She's still dealing with taxes, and she's able to figure out how to actually have these conversations and acknowledge, like, things can be hard, but we can do this together. And I think that was kind of a pretty powerful thing for Evelyn to learn over the course of this, and that she wants to actually be here for her daughter and help her daughter through the hard times. And her daughter is just as stubborn, makes as many bad decisions as she does, but she wants to be by her side. And as she says, she's thrilled that she has Becky to help her, just like as she's starting to acknowledge she has Waymond to help her, which has been a long time coming for Waymond to hear because, as you mentioned at the start of the film, he's filing divorce papers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the worst. It's all the worst. In just sort of really present human detail, they've set it up as the worst. Their apartment's a mess. They live above their laundromat, which is broken down with weirdo customers. And it doesn't feel like there's a path to make it better.
Well, isn't it funny? Like, you'd think, okay, she's at least a successful businesswoman. She and her husband are running a successful laundromat. It doesn't seem, other than dealing with this tax stuff, which mostly seems like it ties into all of her hobby paperwork that she's been doing. It seems like it's a successful laundromat. Yet, it's a worse Evelyn than the one who's living as a pizza sign twirler.
Right.
Like, what's so good in that one? I guess she just twirls pizza signs really well. But that life is better, as a whole than where she is now, and that's fascinating. Like, you can be at a much lower position, but better off, and she doesn't realize that.
Especially because they show the other side of that, where she's a very famous star, right?
Yeah.
And that's not all that great.
No.
Right? It's still objectively better because she doesn't have to worry about, money, and she has a dashing version of Waymond and all of that, those trappings, that sort of superficial trappings. But it's still better than being under a tax investigation and in a increasingly loveless marriage.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's fascinating the way that it explores all of this with the level of all of these characters. But I think a key element that we haven't really talked about is the fact that there is this malevolent force in this multiverse, Jobutapaki, that is working to destroy everything that started in the Alphaverse. And as we come to find out, it's her daughter. And her daughter was really good at jumping through universes, and she kind of forced her into this position where she was driving her with all these tests to see what she could achieve. And she ended up breaking and shattering mentally into a point where she can be in kind of all of the different hers at once across the universe, and realizes there's nothing and wants to bring everything down with this giant everything bagel that she's made that is a vortex that sucks everything good into it. But I think that's an interesting element, because in this worst version of Evelyn, she is struggling with her relationship with her daughter Joy. And I think that's an interesting element that we need to bring up, just the fact that this broken relationship that she's trying to sort through with her daughter reflects into the multiverse, or perhaps is a reflection from the multiverse of this, everything that she's created because of her daughter, her relationship with her daughter in the Alphaverse.
Which is interesting because, we're following Michelle Yeoh, right? We're following her as our principal character, but really, I think the story of individuation of her daughter from her parent-child individuation is fascinating because it's the child who's feeling everything everywhere all at once, right? It's the child who is going through the weight of all of those emotions. And it's the ripples that are, impacting mom and dad in a way that's causing them to react, right? And in so many ways, for me, like watching Joy kind of chase her mother around the multiverse is the experience of living with a child that's trying to go through a very natural state of becoming their own person and pushing you away, right? Like as a parent, that's supposed to happen. You're supposed to want them on some level to leave your house at some point, right? You're supposed to want to push the baby bird out of the nest. Like that's how it works. So I think this movie is an interesting reflection of that it puts so much weight, all the emotional weight of the parent-child relationship in a giant bagel is funny and easy to kind of lampoon, but that doesn't detract from the power of the message that of just how powerful those feelings are between parent and child, mother and daughter. It feels like the weight of the many worlds.
Feels like the weight of the universe. Yeah,
you might say.
Yeah, truly. It's just such a fascinating way to explore this, and it's interesting to see how the Jobu Tupaki version of Joy has kind of, through everything, fallen to this really nihilistic view of life, right? Like there's nothing. And as she kind of explains, like Evelyn, is the one, as Alpha Wayman says, the one who can save everything, the one who can kind of get to that same place that Jobu Tupaki has. But as we learn, Jobu Tupaki wants to show her the bagel so she can also be there with her, right? And that's, I think, an interesting element of this film that is a powerful one, is like, it's hard to be alone, and we're meant to be with other people. And this perhaps the problem with Jobu Tupaki is that her mom in the Alphaverse broke her, kind of, and so she is alone. And she's having a very hard time dealing with this massive amount of thinking and kind of all of these universes sitting on her shoulders, and kind of how overwhelming and depressing that is, and how it makes her this real nihilist in the way that she views everything, and that she wants to bring Evelyn in with her to suffer with her, basically. But what she ends up getting out of that whole thing, because of Evelyn and through all the learning process and the character arcs, is that Evelyn is able to help her get through that and understand that isn't what she wants, and she does need this relationship. And then we see in the local universe that's nearby, where she is just doing her taxes, she is able to finally find that healing place with her daughter. And I think that's I think, for me, the power of so much of this is like working through that sense of being alone. And weirdly, it's like the rocks that, like when they're rocks, like that really amplifies it incredibly.
Oh, for sure. When you take all agency away from them as living beings and make them sentient rocks, of course. I did look, I was trying to find, where did the name Jobu Tupaki come from? Did you look this up at all?
I didn't.
Apparently, there are a lot of people who try to imbue it with words, but apparently, according to Daniel Kwan, he thinks it came to him in a dream after a night of brainstorming baby names for his soon-to-be-born child, Jobu Tupaki, that it's just a nonsensical moniker that ended up coming to him. And yet, in Telugu, the South Indian language, those exact words exist, Jobu Tupaki, and it means, Jobu means pocket, and tupaki means pistol. Jobu tupaki means pocket pistol in a South Indian language. So I don't necessarily think that there's any connection there. I'd probably lean more toward the nonsensical characters for Daniel Kwan, but I think it's funny that those words exist.
Well, and in my head, I was like, is there something like Joy and Becky, Jobu Tupaki? Like, did they get there by trying to find a way to blend things, or I don't know, but it is a funny name, especially when, just speaking to the brilliance of the costume design when it comes to Stephanie Sue's character. It's just some of the most spectacular costume design, hairstyling, makeup, everything is just so spot on perfect. But I love it when she actually has Jobu written across her forehead with like strands of hair.
Well, I wondered for a little while if it wasn't Jobu, the idol that that baseball player prays to in Major League.
Was that Jobu?
If you Jobu, I'll do it myself.
Was it Jobu in that? I didn't remember.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. So funny.
Yeah.
Speaking of the costume design and all that, let's talk a little bit about the Daniels and what they did here, because I mean, it's a multiverse story, which I suppose allows for a lot of freedom in the way they put the production together, the way they put the script together. As we go through Multiverse, we jump aspect ratios a number of times. Sometimes we're 4:3, sometimes we're 16:9, sometimes we're 2:3:5:1. And it just it kind of effortlessly is flowing across all of those. And likewise, story-wise, it's such a strangely constructed script because it's in 3 parts, right? Part 1, everything. And we have the bulk of the first story leading up to end credits. The end, like the movie ends, credits start rolling, and then we pull out and we see the movie star Evelyn in the theater watching this, and then we're in part 2, everywhere, and that's when Evelyn is really starting to learn how to jump through all the different multiverses and everything. And then we finally get to part 3 all at once, like right at the very, it's like the coda. It's like the last little bit of the movie before, and it's like an interestingly structured script. I mean, what do you think of how they chose to craft this, and did the way that they broke it up in those 3 titles make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I guess maybe it doesn't. Maybe we need to talk through it. So when you're talking about everywhere, that's her learning to navigate the multiverses.
Yeah. Right. That she's really starting to jump around and figure out how to use the little ear things and do all those weird things, snorting a fly, whatever it is that she has to do to trigger the thing to do her jumps. Sometimes to wrong, like it's yellow, yet she taps it anyway and ends up in the hot dog universe. Mm-hmm. She does some pretty terrible things, but that's really where she learns how to do it like Jobu Tupaki on her own, where she can kind of start bouncing through. Her little clay pot is fracturing, as she says, and she's kind of living everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, that's everywhere. What was everything?
Everything, I think, is just, I don't know. I read it as like the overwhelming world that she's currently in. Like everything is falling apart in her current universe. The tax situation is a problem. Her relationship with her husband is a problem. Her relationship with her father is a problem. Her relationship with her daughter is a problem. It's just busy, craziness. Like everything is so over the top. And Michelle Yeoh playing Evelyn plays it so perfectly, because if there's a moment of quiet, she has to find something busy to do and run off to do something else. Like she can't settle down because I think everything's kind of falling apart for her, and she just has to be doing something so she's not dwelling on it.
Yeah, right. Okay. And so then all at once is the collision of these things.
Yeah, and it's kind of the final place where I think, as Alpha Waymond says to her, like with her little clay pot, she'll eventually learn she'll be able to train herself to seal those when they come up. And so all at once for me was kind of like she's learned how to close out all of those other multiverses and is now just living herself, and has learned how to fix herself so that in whichever universe she's in, she's working on herself and working to make everything kind of for the better, is kind of how I read it.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's presence, right? That's like by the end of the movie, it's like presence of being, presence of mind, and presence of relationship, and like she has learned from all of the experiences of overwhelm and of Kiwi Kwan's Wayman's incredible speech. I do know one thing. I know we have to be kind, about the influence of her, of the way she presents to the world on the world around her. When she comes at it angsty and frustrated and mad all the time and overwhelmed, the world will be overwhelmed to her back.
Yeah.
It's pretty powerful.
It's really that the sequence when she's learning how to fight like Wayman, where instead of actually fighting, she's like, these two need to be together, hug and kiss. This person, like that one customer, she sprays the perfume at him to smell, to be reminded of his deceased wife. They each get, or one of them gets a puppy, like they each get a little something that helps them get through that whole place. And she's helping them. And that's, I think, the lesson is like, and that goes back to the whole thing, like, it's a lonely world and we're not meant to live it alone.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the thing that she's recognized is like, if you go through life angsty and in a panic state all the time, you're kind of always pushing things away and you're never strengthening any of your relationships. And and these are lessons that I could be taking in my own life. You need
This is therapy.
This movie is therapy. Yeah.
It is totally therapy.
Yeah. You need to learn how to just welcome everybody in and find a way to kind of get along with everybody.
Yeah. Right. Can we transition to Kiwi Kwan, please?
Always.
This is such a surprise.
Yes.
Because before this movie, I hadn't really been tracking Kiwi Kwan. I loved him, obviously, as a child, as Short Round and Goonies and like all of those early parts that we saw him in. And then he's in this movie. And that's when I started wondering, what has he been doing all these years? And it turns out he's been very busy and was working as a stunt coordinator, worked on The Matrix. Like, he's been very, very busy, which is why it should not have been a surprise to watch him be such a physical actor in this movie. But it was. And an even more delightful surprise to see him as such an emotional actor in this movie. He was just a revelation. He was a revelation.
Yeah, and as such, somebody I've always connected to because of those movies I saw when I was young, that he was also young in, like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom or the Goonies. Like, I just always felt a connection with kind of all of those kids acting at that time, as anyone probably does when they're watching kids. But he was one of those people I just always felt connected to. And then he did kind of disappear for a very long time, and I didn't realize he was doing like stunt choreography, stuff like that. I think every once in a while you'd hear like Goonies reunion. Oh, what are they up to? Oh, Kiwi Kwan's doing stunt coordinating. Like, I'd hear things like that. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what he's shifted into. So I kind of had a sense of that, but I wasn't really tracking him. And yeah, I didn't realize that he had kind of tried shifting back into acting, and this really kind of exploded with this film, which was amazing to see him come back in such a strong emotional performance, as you said.
Yeah, right? Like, such a perfect dad. He's a perfect dad. Just trying to do right by his family in a modern and incredibly complicated universe.
Yes, very much so.
It was really wonderful to see him start showing up in other things, right? American-Born Chinese and Loki in particular was fantastic. He did show up in Kung Fu Panda 4, which I haven't seen, but I imagine he was great.
Yeah. Oh, I imagine too. And then, I know he had another movie. He has another movie next year that he's in, that he's going to be working, called With Love. And he's also in something that's being finalized now called The Electric State, which is based on a graphic novel. Have you heard of that?
That was with the Millie Bobby Brown thing coming up.
Well, it's the Russo brothers behind it.
Chris Pratt and I think Millie Bobby Brown.
Stanley Tucci, Jason Alexander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jason Alexander. That I didn't know.
Voices like Brian Cox, Jenny Slate, Giancarlo Esposito, Anthony Mackie, Billy Bob Thornton. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's the Russos. They can get a stacked cast. They've handled it a few times.
They've handled it a few times.
And as executive producers of this, obviously they probably had that connection with Kiwi Kwan or they're producing this. So yeah.
Right. Well, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So I love him. I love that he was in this, and I hope we see more performances that are from him that are written as well as the movie is Everything Everywhere All at Once is written.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, his acting career is small. We've only talked about Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom as far as what he's done, which was the second episode we ever recorded.
That's right.
But then Michelle Yeoh, we've talked about Crouching Tiger with her. I don't know if we've really jumped into many other films of hers, have we?
No, I don't think we have. She's also fantastic. I think, I haven't seen nearly all of her performance. She's got 65 credits with 8 upcoming.
Yeah, she's very busy.
So busy. She is in Avatar 3, 4, and 5. Was she in Avatar 2? Did I not pay attention enough?
No, I don't believe so.
Wow. So anyway, she's fantastic everywhere she shows up. I liked her I think the most recent thing besides this that I saw her in was probably Gunpowder Milkshake. That was a fun movie.
Did you see Haunting in Venice? Did you see the latest?
I totally saw that. Yeah,
okay,
You're right. I saw that too. That I saw. I have not started watching The Witcher Blood Origin, but I'm a big fan of The Witcher. That's been on my list for a while now. I'm a couple of years late coming back to that.
Oh, and we saw her in Shang-Chi.
Yeah, she was in Shang-Chi. Yeah.
Yeah. I forget that she was in that one.
Boss Level was fun. That was a fun movie.
Crazy Rich Asians was good.
Crazy Rich Asians was great.
And she's in Wicked coming out soon.
Yep. But I still think of all of those movies, my favorite performance of hers is either this one or Crouching Tiger. Like, she's just great. And this goes all the way back to like the Jackie Chan stuff that she did.
Yeah. Super Cop.
Which was also extraordinary, which gave her that sort of reputation, just like Jackie Chan, of being the incredible stunt action martial arts woman. She's incredible.
I think for some people, they didn't know who she was, or for some Americans, I should say, they didn't know who she was until she was in James Bond. She did Tomorrow Never Dies, and which is a great James Bond film. And that was her Hollywood debut, but she had done plenty of other things beforehand with Jackie Chan. But a lot of those kind of kung fu movies and wuxia films where she was doing some pretty amazing stunt work. And that kind of worked well for James Bond, but then that kind of continued her thread, even though she would appear in things like Memoirs of a Geisha and things like that didn't need her to be kicking people or things like that. But yeah.
Which is what was so great about Crouching Tiger, is that she got to give an elegant performance and also one where she could kick people and jump on trees.
Yes. Yeah. Should have been nominated for an Oscar for that film. I loved it.
Oh, for sure.
What do you think of Jamie Lee Curtis as Deirdre Beaudeirdre?
I think Jamie Lee Curtis I thought she was great. I thought she was really great. I find watching her talk about her performances a little bit exhausting, but her performances themselves are quite fun, right? Deirdre Beaudeirdre is such a character part, right? But seeing her in all of the other universes and seeing her with the circle stapled to her head and like all of the hot dog fingers, she went through it for this movie just like everybody else. And I think she was great as an over the top kind of character comedic performance.
Yeah, no, I think she worked well. I think for some people, when it came down to the Oscar race, and we'll talk about the awards here in just a sec, but the battle between, for Best Supporting Actress between Jamie Lee Curtis and Stephanie Hsu, I think was a big one, because I think a lot of people wanted to see Jamie Lee Curtis get an award because she's Jamie Lee Curtis. She's been doing a wide variety of work since the 70s and doing some really interesting things. But Stephanie Hsu certainly is like the emotional core of this film as the one who's the antagonist as Jobu Tupaki, but also dealing with mom issues and some really touching moments that she has in the film. And I think it's kind of a tough battle, and you can see why. Do you vote on performance or kind of everything that Jamie Lee Curtis is bringing to the table?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think in this case they voted on performance. I mean, there's a lack of complexity in Deirdre Beaudeirdre's character, who swings back and forth between a tax auditor and supervillain, but not even the superest of villain. When you get with Jobu Tupaki, that line between, that emotional line between maniacal supervillain daughter and, daughter learning to love and leave her mother. That's huge.
Yeah, no, it's pretty powerful.
And, Freaky Friday 2 is coming. So There's a good chance there's, don't you think,
Haunted-
Oscar contention for that? That's coming.
Do you think there's going to be a Haunted Mansion too?
Yeah.
James Hong he's always fantastic. It was great to see that whole campaign about him getting a Hollywood star, because certainly he's been around so long, and he's just great. He was great to see in the awards circuits and everything here. I enjoy him so much in this film. I just always have enjoyed him.
Yeah, for sure. Always.
Well, it's a fantastic film, and we could talk about this thing for hours. We should just throw out on our True Story FM network, the team behind the Exorcist Minute is soon going to be doing, untitled yet, but essentially the Everything Everywhere All at Once Minute, which is going to be a lot of fun. And they will have a lot more in-depth conversations about that. Lester and Keenan are very excited about that conversation, and I'm excited to hear them dig in.
Oh, me too. Me too. As a big fan of The Exorcist Minute, I can't wait to see what they bring to this movie. We should then stop talking about it, because otherwise we're totally spoiling it.
Because they're going to listen to us. Oh, they've already talked about that.
They've already talked about that. I guess we've just gotten rid of minutes 60 through 85.
Yeah. But before we go, I just want to say, there are a number of moments where you have like those flashes, those like one frame flashes of Michelle Yeoh across all the different universes and multiverses as she's like doing her things. Did you pause at all? Have you ever paused just to see what some of them are?
I have, but I haven't scrubbed, right? I've paused to just see what I get, like a roulette wheel. And
okay.
They're very funny. What do you got? Do you have some favorites?
Well, some it's just funny because it's obviously just some other random face that they kind of morph into a little bit of Michelle Yeoh, so she's kind of somewhat in there. But there was one that was funny. It was like a grapes hanging on a vine, and they just kind of, you could see that Michelle Yeoh's eyes, nose, and mouth are kind of in the grapes in some capacity. So that was the one that I stopped on. I'm like, okay, that's a strange one, like the grapes universe.
That's awesome.
I mean, this speaks to filmmakers finding ways to use smaller amounts of money in incredibly creative ways, visual effects wise, physical effects wise, just production wise. I mean, it's incredibly smart the way I went to a panel with the production designer and his wife, who's I think the set decorator, talking about their time working with the Daniels on a number of music videos and a number of projects, and just how they're always looking for, even in what look like incredibly complicated visual effects, finding ways to do it in very simple physical effects ways. It's amazing to think of how they're putting their stuff together.
Yeah, right. Amazing.
All right, well, we'll be right back, but first our credits.
The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Andy Nelson. Music by Ciro, Oriole Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing just that for our show. All right, it's award season. I don't know how much time we have. What do you think it's going to take to get through all of them?
Well,
we're in the hundreds, right?
It's 403 wins with 374 other nominations. But over at the Oscars, they won a lot. It was a very winning. In fact, I'm just going to read this from the Wikipedia page because it really defines the award season quite well before we jump into a few. It won 7 of its 11 Academy Award nominations, including a record-breaking 6 above-the-line wins and a record-tying 3 acting wins. The film received 10 BAFTA nominations, winning 1, 13 Critics' Choice Movie Awards nominations, winning 5, 8 Independent Spirit Award nominations, winning a record-breaking 7, and 6 Golden Globe Awards nominations, winning 2. It was named one of the top 10 films of 2022 by the National Board of Review and the American Film Institute. The film also won top prizes from the Directors Guild of America, the Producers Guild of America, Writers Guild of America, and Screen Actor Guilds, the last of which it won a record-breaking 4 awards. The film became the 5th film to sweep all 4 top prizes from the major guilds, DGA, PGA, WGA, SAG.
Wow.
After American Beauty, No Country for Old Men, Slumdog Millionaire, and Argo. All 5 ended up winning Best Picture at their respective Academy Awards. So, and then at the Oscars, it won Best Original Screenplay. It lost Best Original Score to All Quiet on the Western Front. Pete, you still have to watch this. It lost Original Song, This Is a Life to Natu Natu from RRR. Won Best Picture, Best Directors, Best Lead Actress, Michelle Yeoh, who became the first Asian Best Actress, the second woman of color after Halle Berry in 2002, and the first Malaysian to win any Academy Award. For Best Supporting Actress, Jamie Lee Curtis won, beating Stephanie Hsu, who is also nominated. Stephanie Hsu's nomination, along Hong Chau's nomination for The Whale, marked the first time 2 actresses of Asian ethnicity were nominated in the category the same year. Ke Huy Quan was nominated for Best Supporting Actor and won, which was so fantastic to watch at the Oscars. And he was the first Vietnam-born actor to win an Academy Award. Nominated for Best Costume Design, but lost to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and Best Film Editing win. And that was the one where everyone was like, whoa, that guy's hot. I didn't know editors could be hot guys like that. And that was a whole funny trend after the Oscars.
Editors could be hot.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
And because so many of the awards are kind of the sorts of things that you'd expect for our conversation, I figured, let's look at a couple others. Hollywood Makeup Artist and Hairstyle Guild Awards. The Best Contemporary Makeup Feature-Length Motion Picture, it won, and was nominated for Best Contemporary Hairstyling in a Feature-Length Motion Picture, but lost to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. And over at the Motion Picture Sound Editors Golden Reel Awards, it was nominated for Outstanding Achievement in Sound Editing for Dialogue and ADR, but lost to Banshees of Inisherin. Also is nominated in the same category for Effects and Foley, but lost to Top Gun Maverick. And it was nominated for Outstanding Achievement in Music Editing, but lost to Elvis. And of course, the reason we're here, the DGA Awards, Outstanding Directorial Achievement in a Theatrical Feature Film. The Daniels won Best Director for this. Now, this is closing out this series. So considering the Oscars, Triangle of Sadness was nominated instead of Top Gun Maverick, Ruben Östlund, and also that the Oscars have 10 nominations. The other 5 were All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, Elvis, Triangle of Sadness, Women Talking. Would you change anything about the DGA? Would you pick a different winner? What do you think?
Well, I struggle because I haven't seen Triangle of Sadness. I haven't seen Women Talking.
Okay, but you've seen All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, and Elvis. Just of the DGA, with Banshees of Inisherin, The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, and this, would you take any of those and move them into the DGA Best Director?
The thing I struggle with is All Quiet on the Western Front and Top Gun for direction. I could maybe get there. But otherwise, I think I'm okay.
Yeah, see, it's interesting because Top Gun Maverick is such a Hollywood film. Like, it's so Hollywood, but they do it so well. Like, it is such a strong example of what Hollywood can crank out. To your point, though, I would absolutely put All Quiet on the Western Front over it. You know, I think that film was just a marvel in the way that it was constructed and how the story was told. But at the same time, you could say Baz Luhrmann sure knows how to direct a film. Elvis was solid Baz Luhrmann telling of that story. And Triangle of Sadness, really interesting story. Personally, I wouldn't put it on there. I can see why maybe the Oscars put Ruben Östlund up there. But I kind of agree. I'd put All Quiet on the Western Front in there.
Okay. Well, maybe that pushes me over the edge. I confirm. All Quiet on the Western Front should have been there.
Hell yeah.
Okay, how to do at the box office.
Well, it's easy to say it did well for itself. The Daniels Little Movie That Could has several budget listings, though, which was confusing for me.
Of course, because look at how many awards listings it has.
Yeah, I know. It's the multiversal budget. It's all kind of flowing into this. One is for $14.3 million and another for $25 million. I'm just going to guess that it was a $14.3 million budget, and then with all of the run that it had from the time it premiered at, I think, was it Sundance or South by Southwest? One of those. And then just kind of like the snowball of watching that kind of run for as long as it did, all the prints and advertising budget probably bumped it to $25 million. So I'm just going to go with that, which is $27 million in today's dollars. The movie premiered, here you go, I wrote it down. The movie premiered at South by Southwest, March 11th. Then opened limited March 25th, 2022, opposite The Lost City, RRR, and Infinite Storm. This opened in 13th place And once it expanded, it ended up moving up to third place, staying in the top 10 for 16 weeks. This movie stayed in theaters for over a year, having a big boost after the Oscar nominations and its eventual win. All told, the movie went on to earn $77.2 million domestically and $66.2 million internationally for a total gross of $154.9 million in today's dollars. That lands it with an adjusted profit per finished minute of $920,000 and earning back almost 6 times its budget. A huge success for A24 and everyone involved.
Not bad. Not bad. And a huge success for us for just even talking about it.
We won. We won podcasting today.
We sure did.
Yeah. No, it's I love this film. It's always fun to revisit and just a powerful, powerful film. I always get more out of it each time I watch it. So I'm glad. I mean, we ended the series. Generally, we've been doing all these alphabetically, but early on, we knew we wanted to end the season with this movie. So we shifted things just so we could end things here in one of our favorites.
All right.
We'll be right back for our ratings, but first, here's the trailer for the first movie kicking off our next season on July 25th for members, August 1st for everyone else. It's a return to our Indiana Jones series. That's right. It's James Mangold's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
I'm retiring.
Well, in that case, what are we drinking?
Same for the goddaughter.
Dad told me you found something on a train during the war. A dial that could change the course of history.
Why are you chasing the thing that drove your father crazy? Don't move.
We need to get out of here. Stop! Sorry.
Helena! Dr. Jones, get him. Hitler made mistakes, and with this, I will correct them all. You stole it. Then you stole it.
And then I stole it. It's called capitalism.
This way!
Fasten your seatbelts. There might be some turbulence.
You've taken your chances, made your mistakes, and now a final triumph.
Give him hell, Indiana Jones! A few times in my life, I've seen things. I've been tortured with voodoo. Been shot 9 times, including once by your father. Sorry! But I've been looking for this all my life.
All right, Andy Letterboxd. I mean, now, is there much of a conversation about this?
Not really. I mean, it's very easily 5 stars on a heart for me. I mean, it's just straight up from the moment I saw it. It's just exactly what I love in film.
Yep. For me, too. It is 100% 5-star heart. If I could give it more hearts, if I could take hearts from you and give it to my review of it.
Oh, now you're taking my hearts away?
Yeah. I have no shame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would absolutely do that.
Well, you can find me at Soda Creek Film. You can find Pete at Pete Wright. And you can find the show over on Letterboxd at The Next Reel. So what did you think about Everything Everywhere All at Once? We would love to hear your thoughts. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community, where we will be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
Some people had strong feelings about this movie in the negative direction. They had, dare I say, quibbles.
Some people did have quibbles with this, yes.
I would like to pick one that is a 0.5 star.
Oh, you are going low.
Yeah, 76 Wizzy, who brings the 0.5 star, who says...
Do you think they have that? That sounds like something they'd have tattooed on their chest.
76 Wizzy says, F this S, bruh. It had unlikable characters, F ton of transitions. I didn't even finish halfway through this acid trip F of a movie. I despise this movie so much I think I need an effing cigarette, and rates it ass out of 10.
A new rating system created. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
It's great. It's
That
great.
is fantastic.
Nailing it.
So
Just
fantastic.
nailing it. What do you got?
I went to the very first review. I wanted to see who is the first person to put something in there. And I think it's just something we didn't bring up at all, but sometimes we talk about this in relation of shows. But I love what Cinephile Critique has to say. They just give it a heart, no ratings. I wish the Academy had an Oscar for Best Poster. This would be the winner of the year. And yeah,
the poster, awesome.
Whichever poster you're looking at, it is a film that has a really unique set of posters that are all such interesting things. I have one hanging on my wall right there. I see it every day. I just really love it. But yeah, fantastic movie poster. Not the main one that's just like the words and then like the collage of people standing in front of it, but the one where it's like the circle and just like all the different people around.
Yeah, like the kaleidoscope of characters.
Exactly. Yeah, love it. Absolutely love it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
No, thanks, Letterboxd.